What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Everything College Basketball Podcast, episode 216. I'm, of course, your host, Josh Burton, and joining me again today are my esteemed colleagues and friends. We got Mr. Trevor Everett, Coach Scott Parrott, Mr. Michael DeRosa. Gentlemen, it is a fine Sunday afternoon. As we sit here, we are 5 weeks away. Let that digest for a second. 5 weeks away from Selection Sunday. The season, in a blink of an eye, just like that, we are inching ever closer to finding out the full field of 68. But we have another big weekend of action to talk about today. Before we get into all that and more, how are we doing on this fine Sunday?
I'm doing great. Was there 150 games or something? Yeah, I mean, what a slate yesterday, because Super Bowl Sunday today, obviously, so a limited slate. A very good Xavier Villanova game going on here behind me that I'm peeking up at every now and then. But just excited to talk about all the events of the week with you guys. It's good to see you.
Just turned it on because I forgot it was on right now and not an hour from now.
That's what I'm here for, Trevor.
Just turned it on. Michael, what you got?
Yeah, I'm also watching that game. It's over on my left for me. Yeah, it was a fun day of hoops yesterday. Hugo Poplar just nailed a three for me. It's going to be fun to break it all down and tell you guys how. Did I get my bank on it right? Did I say double digits or did I say they win? I think I said double digits and Vanderbilt didn't hit double digits because of a last second layup. So
I thought Vanderbilt would win the last one before that, and I don't whatever.
Very proud of my bank on it. We'll get to that later.
You nailed yours, Coach.
As always, we are. So go ahead, Trev. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying I as soon as I say them, I forget they exist. So I'm just glad that you guys keep up with them better than that.
As always, we are live on the Twitter, the YouTube, and on the Facebook group. If you're following along with us live, like our good friend Connor McCabe, who's usually first in line here, leave your comments, questions below. We will get to them throughout the course of the show. As always, too, we're brought to you by and in part with House of College Hoops. Go visit our website over at house-enterprise.com. We're grateful for the network allowing us to have this platform. Let's start with, I won't say it's the biggest news in college basketball, but it's a pretty damn big news. Good news at that. Dickie V made his return yesterday to the sidelines after a 2-year hiatus, obviously dealing with a multitude of cancer there. And he beat it, man. 85 years old, got a standing ovation, of course, emotional at the Duke-Clemson game. The student section, as they should, cheered him on. We've talked a lot about Dickie V over the years, how his importance to our sport of college basketball, having him back, and especially in this capacity where he's calling the games again, but having him back in general, Coach, it is a big damn deal, and we're really happy. 85 years young, good to have him back.
I mean, who isn't happy about this news? I mean, I've been listening to him, following him for 40 years now. And I'll tell you this, everybody kind of has their phone and who your most important contacts or cool contacts in your phone. Well, I have Dick Vitale in my phone. And the reason I do is a few years ago, he was friends of a guy whose grandson was interested in Rice, and Dickie V wanted me to recruit him. And at the time, I did not have a scholarship available. I could not, no matter how good the kid could have been LeBron James, I couldn't offer him a scholarship. And so I, kind of had to explain that to Dickie V. He didn't want to hear it sometimes. But I really appreciated his passion to try and help the young man. And I appreciated having a relationship with him that I can actually shoot him in text and say, really happy to see you back, and everybody's happy about it.
Did you ever have a game that he was on the call? Assistant on sideline anyway?
Yes. Yeah, great point, Trevor. Yes. When I was at Arizona State, we played Duke in the Madison Square Garden, one of those preseason.
Nice.
We played LSU the one night and Duke the next. And here's what I remember about it. Before the game, he had known Herb from the ACC days, right, when he was at NC State. Yeah. So they had a little bit of a previous relationship. Well, the night we played Duke, I believe it was my scout. So I was in the locker room early back in Madison Square Garden when Dickie V, and what was his stat guy? The guy was with him all the time, had a nickname.
Time. Yeah.
The only ESPN stat guy I can think of would be with the Bear or whatever his name is.
No, he had a guy named, not the Swami, but he had a guy with him Howie something.
Oh, Howie, yes.
yes.
Yeah.
And Howie was with him. And I remember before the game when we were rehashing all these things, Howie was writing them all down so that during the game, like he would feed. I remember like how they worked. He would feed Dick all these stats and these important points that we were hitting before the game. And so there's a memory of him doing a game I was on.
I'll share this because I don't think I've done it on this podcast before. One of my prized possessions, I've actually never read this because it's one of my prized possessions in my collection. I have Campus Chaos signed by Dick Vitale and Dick Weiss.
Oh, that's cool.
And
that's
cool. To God's honest truth, can't remember where I found it. Bookstore somewhere, I'm assuming. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. I don't think the guy behind me realizes how cool this is. So I bought it. And just to give you context, I can't find the year that it came out. I'm sure we could Google it. It's not in one of the front or back pages, but it's really funny how this aged and how his return and kind of things. They kind of talked about it last night too, which I thought was funny. For those that don't know, the book is titled Campus Chaos: Why the Game I Love is Breaking My Heart. And on a whiteboard behind him, again, Michael, can you look up the year? I feel like you're really good.
I'm looking it up right now.
I know Mike's like immediately probably already found it. Clean up gambling.
2000, the year 2000.
All right, so this is even funnier. On the whiteboard behind him says, clean up gambling, control agents and boosters, keep players in school, reform recruiting, and restrict NCAA rules.
How'd that go?
And he signed it right across the top of it. I mean, literally couldn't have been any better. And so, I've actually never read it. And so, you know what? When the season ends, I probably will. On vacation, I'll probably take it and knock it out. It's 10 chapters, super easy. Some of the names on the back are unbelievable. Rick, is it Majerus? I always get his name mixed up.
Majerus.
I know it's close. Yeah. Tubby Smith, Bob Knight, Eddie Sutton, Mike Krzyzewski, Dean Smith. Those are just some of the guys that gave him some.
Well, you talking about Bob Knight. Nobody was a bigger fan of the General more than Dick Vitale. He loved Bobby Knight for good reason. He loved Coach K, Roy Williams, Dean Smith, like all those old school guys. Like Dick Vitale has an affinity for them. And Coach, how about this? You and Michael. I know Michael hasn't really chimed in yet. Without Dickie V, we wouldn't have like the great phrases like diaper dandy, super scintillating, sensational. He's a high riser. Like he's the best, man. He's the best.
What's Michael? Yeah, your generation. Talk to me.
So I feel like I've mentioned this once, like whenever I'm watching a game back home, like my mom's not a huge basketball fan.
You did say this is cool. You
it's whenever Dickie V's on the call. Oh, that's Dick Vitale. Like she knows who Dick Vitale is, but she doesn't know like
it's insanity
about anybody aside from like a Coach K. She'd know like Roy Williams, but like she wouldn't know many people other than Dick Vitale. So it's
that says it all. Honestly, Michael, that right there sums up Dick Vitale and the importance to the sport. That's a great story.
One point I wanted to make real quick. You know how like I got two things actually. You know how like you, Coach, said one of like the most famous people you have on your phone is Dickie V? Mine is Coach Para. But also,
that's the best.
But also, remember I feel like this was the last game Dickie V called before yesterday. It was the Mustafa Amsil game. It was Dayton versus Kansas, and Amsil hit the shot where like bounced over the front of the rim and like rolled in. That was the last game he called, right? And then he's calling Clemson Duke, which is a thriller the entire time. Like, not bad.
Yeah. Not bad.
There's not many. I can't think right now. Obviously, you're not going to remember the bad games. I'd have to look at just like somewhere. There's probably a thing. ESPN could probably provide it of games he's called.
Yeah.
Can you think of any bad ones? I can think of more good ones off the top of my head. I really can. Think about me, right? Like I grew up in ACC country, right? He is a synonymous voice with me and my father and all these people that get to watch him. And obviously, he does the national games, but it just felt like every Tuesday we turn on a Duke game and he's calling it.
Yeah.
So it's really, really cool stuff, man.
Really happy to have him back for multiple reasons. One, obviously happy he beat cancer yet again. Happy to have him back on the side 4 times.
I didn't know that. I didn't know it was 4 different ones. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, he had a lot of bad luck there, kind of right in a row. But beat it, 85 years young, back on the sidelines. Really happy to have him. And he mentioned it's his Super Bowl yesterday for good reason.
Yeah.
And we hope he's around for another 20, 25 years or whatever, getting to do this.
Speaking of Super Bowl, that was the question I was going to ask. Since we'll probably not have time as soon as we're done because we got to go get to watching it. But who's everybody got? I just wanted to ask that out loud. And I know it's a college basketball podcast, but
I too many people watching the Eagles fans.
I know. I knew you were going to say that.
EAGLES. So I'll go with the Eagles just out of pure, where I'm from, all my friends and ex-players that are rooting for them. So I'm going to go Eagles.
Can I be honest? Oh, go ahead, Michael. Go ahead. You take it first. Go ahead.
Yeah. Last year, I did a thing where because I didn't think the Chiefs were very good, I bet against them in every single one of their playoff games. I lost every single time. I'm not doing that again. I'm not picking this at Mahomes guy again. I haven't yet, and I'm not going to. You're winning.
I have no desire to watch Super Bowl tonight. I don't. Chiefs. It's bad, especially around here where I'm from. Most people are Colts fans, and they hated Brady and the Patriots for good reason. They would always be like, "Oh, they get so many calls, and they blah blah blah." But yet they love the Chiefs, and I'm like, they get just as many calls.
Thank you.
And then the Eagles fans drive me insane because how they treat people. So I really don't want either team to win, but I know somebody's got to. So for betting purposes, the only thing I'll watch for tonight, and I hope the final score ends with Chiefs last number 4, and I hope the Eagles end in a 6. But I think the Chiefs win and make it 4 in a row, 3 in a row, whatever it is.
Is it possible for you to get? Because I think it's going to come down to the last possession, and at that point, I think that's an impossible score to finish. Which is, I mean, look, a quarter can end that way, you know.
24-16, 24-26, like 2-point conversions and stuff.
That's true, yeah. All right. I'll just say this. I just thought it was fun because, like, you know, it is today ultimately, and basically after Rutgers, Maryland, George Washington, St. Bonaventure's, and whatever the other Big East one was that we just talked about, Villanova, Xavier. After those 3, that's it. Like, if you love college basketball, you're basically stuck with the rest of the night of just watching football. So to have fun. I just was curious if anybody like had what they want versus what they thought. So,
no, I think, look, Mahomes
3 in a row is insane.
As a fan of sports and a historical fan of it, like I kind of equate Mahomes to Derek Jeter. Like the guy just wins.
Yeah.
Sometimes when he's not at his best, sometimes when he makes the plays that wins the game, sometimes because somebody wants to say there was a call or whatever. Patrick Mahomes wins, and you're right. It's really hard to bet against him. I'm just doing it for pure heart. It's just if I was betting, I'd probably bet on Mahomes.
Right.
I'm not. I'm going to cheer for the Eagles. Sit back. My wife's making some French dips. Probably going to have a nice glass of Cabernet at some point. So I'm just going to enjoy the game.
A chicken wing in Raleigh better just start running now because when I get a hold of them about 6 o'clock, it's going to be nasty. By the way, I was right. The last game of the day is Ohio State, Nebraska, 2 o'clock.
Perfect. Well, let's move away from the NFL. We'll see what happens in the Super Bowl tonight. But we had a big Saturday, big weekend dating back to Friday night. We'll talk about that result because the Johnnies are for real. We'll get to that. But I think we got to start. I titled today's episode, The Top 2 Fall. Number 1 in the ECB Top 25 and number 2 both took L's yesterday, their first conference loss. So let's start with the number 1 team in the land, Auburn, at home in the jungle. And Florida comes to town and hangs 90 on them. Florida wins 90-81. Gentlemen, we have talked all year about how good this Florida team is, especially when full health. Walter Clayton Jr. had an ankle issue. He had missed a game or 2. He was back yesterday, and boy, was he ever. 19 points, 4 of 8 from the three-point line, 9 assists to only 3 turnovers, a 3-to-1 turnover assist to turnover ratio in that game. But I think the story of this game not only was Walter Clayton, they were missing Elijah Martin, but how about the Florida bigs stepped up in a huge spot? We kind of previewed on Thursday, Coach and DeRosa, about if Florida was the win, this could be a spot. We all kind of agreed, Janai Broome and Dylan Cardwell, probably too much. But Florida's bigs, man, Alex Condon, 17 points. Ruben Chinule, only 4, but his impact defensively really threw off Auburn's bigs. And Thomas Huff, 16 points. Florida is damn good. We have said it all year. This team is not only Final Four good, but they proved last night they can go win a national title. What a performance by the Florida Gators coach in a hostile environment against the number 1 team in the country. Impressive win.
We talked about, and we're worried about making our picks based on whether Clayton played. He plays, Martin doesn't, and they do what they did. It's just, you're right. They are at their best and at their healthiest. There's like their championship level team good. I agree with you. So hell of a win by the Gators. And I'll say this before I shoot it to Michael and Trev. I have a good friend, Carlin Hartman, an assistant on that staff. I've known him for a long time. He's actually got a son who's a very good player too. Carlin tweeted after the game, in his 25 years of Division I college coaching, it may be his most impressive or or most fun win he's ever had. That tells you how good it was.
Is his son the Colin Hartman that played at Indiana? That's
No,
from
his son's
Indiana?
Joseph Hartman. He's in high school.
Okay.
You will hear the name in about 2 years.
Okay.
He's a very, very good player.
There was a Colin Hartman that was a real good high school player a while back here and went to Indiana. So I was just kind of curious. Michael, Trev, impressive win without Elijah Martin. That is a scary Florida team right now.
Yeah, just looking at this game too. I mean, Coach mentioned the point of like, yeah, we were talking about, or Josh, you mentioned actually how we were talking about like, yeah, Janai Broom, Dylan Cardwell, like the size. Florida dominated the interior of this game. Auburn was 48% from 2-point range. Florida was 58% from 2-point range. Like they were just better on the interior. Auburn had 15 offensive rebounds. Florida had 11. Like Auburn had more, but like they fought back on the offensive glass too. They just kind of did all those things. They were tougher on the interior. That was kind of the main difference. It also just happened that they were the better shooting team because Walter Clayton was 4 of 8 from 3 and decided to play. And then off the bench, Urban Klavsar. Hopefully I got that right. 3 from deep. There you go. Like that's it. Florida was excellent in this game. And yeah, you mentioned that they are national title good. I mean, just the way they ran through their non-conference, like the only game that was competitive was that UNC game. But like other than that, like they just beat everybody like a drum. And their losses are at Kentucky. Get a pass for that. Home to Missouri in that really, really weird game that lasted like 4 hours. And then Tennessee got them pretty bad. But like, yeah, Florida's good, man.
I only push back because their hardest game in their non-conference was, if you just go off KenPom, was North Carolina. And like, that was my hesitation. That was why I had them in the 15s for most. I just have to make sure people were aware of that. But you're correct. They steamrolled everybody, even Wake Forest. Like that was just a game that Wake Forest is obviously getting back on their track. I'll just say this about Florida, like top 4 offense, top 9 defense. Like that obviously is a recipe alone for national championship. But I think the thing, and of course, Clayton changes all of this, Martin, of course, as well. But the thing I love about them is once they're in control of the game, that's it. The other team has no chance because they can keep complete control. And you hear the whole, like, and Coach probably is sick of hearing this for 30 years. It's just like, this guy changes the pace of the game and he controls the pace of the game in his hand. And I the more and more I'm around this game, the more and more I don't believe that there's one guy that could just completely like hold a game in his hand. But like those two guards, like once the game is in their hands and it's at their speed, it's one of those cases this year where like it just like if they go up against an Alabama in let's say the Final Four or whatever, or League 8 or whatever, I'm sure they'll that could probably happen, right? If Florida takes control of the game, because I know they play them the second last game of the year. That'll be an incredible game to watch. But Alabama's projected to win by 1. That's a team where if Alabama takes control of the speed of the game, good luck, right? Good luck figuring that out. But Florida, I think once they put their foot in and mold into a game, I don't think there's any team in the country that can just take it back from them. I think that's what's so impressive about them.
Well, here's the thing. A couple points on that. Michael, you mentioned how Florida dominated the 2-point area around the rim. Auburn missed uncharacteristically a bunch of bunnies. Like Janai Broom, Dylan Cardwell would get the ball like right around the rim and miss it, leave it short. And I think a lot of it had to do with the Florida interior challenging everything. They may not get the block, but they were challenging everything. And Broom, Cardwell, and the Auburn bigs just weren't finishing around the rim. And I'll say this about Florida. You talked about 2 of the teams in the SEC that had beat them so far. Tennessee used defense to suffocate them. Kentucky outscored them. There is no in between with Florida. You either have to just bring the A+ of A+ defensive efforts you got and hope that they miss and turn the ball over, or you have to be a team like Kentucky that can just match them shot for shot. Auburn found themselves down 21 in the second half with 14 minutes to go, and they had no chance of coming back. They did rally, got it under 10 a couple times, but Florida just scores at such a high rate that if you can't match them point for point, you have no shot of beating them because of the pace and the tempo.
So then thinking all that really quick, the Missouri loss is something that, like, they lost at home against Missouri 83-82. Does that seem more and more like, I know Missouri's good. They just lost yesterday. I want to get to that one later, but like, does that seem more and more like an anomaly, or is it just like,
well, think about it. Missouri fits that same mold as like Kentucky, though. Missouri's high tempo, scores at will most games. And so they were able to kind of keep pace point for point as well. It's just, if you find yourself in that in between where you go 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes or more without scoring, Florida is going to score. You have to either be extremely good defensively like Tennessee is and cut their water off completely, or you're just going to have to make shot for shot and hope you have the ball at the end. I think that's the only way you beat Florida this year.
Yeah, I listening to you guys talk and thinking about that game, and I talked about this before the show, and I kind of come up with a reason here because I've been so pro on like how hard home court is, right? And well, 6 SEC teams went on the road yesterday. And the one we're talking about now obviously was the marquee game. But, if you ask me the reason, well, Coach, why do you think that's happening so much in this league? Like, because you went to the Missouri-Florida game, right? Well, I just think there's so many good teams that if you don't play your A game on that night, no matter where it is in this league, you lose. Yep. And that, I think that's what is happening is my best explanation if somebody would ask a question about that as to why, because I've thought a lot about it.
It's good.
I think that's a good point. The league is so good that, like the coach just said, if you don't bring your A game every night, like you can be clipped home or away. And Auburn, I want to talk Auburn just real quick, gentlemen, because obviously anybody that panics, completely stupid. That was only their first conference loss, only their second loss overall. And I just think it was one of those nights where Auburn didn't have their A game and they played a really, really good team and they got exposed for it. Auburn will bounce back. They'll be fine. But do we take any lessons from this? Let me ask you this. Does this make Auburn, who seemed invincible pretty much all year, does it look like maybe now they have some, not cracks, but what's the word I'm looking for? Like, does it feel now after this game that you look at Auburn thinking, oh, yeah, if we do this, we can beat them. They're not as unbeatable as maybe once thought.
I always thought it was insane that people thought they were like this giant that could never be slayed. I mean, obviously, this team is way better than the team last year that lost to Yale. But to think that any team, like, granted, when they get to the NCAA tournament, like, it's going to obviously be matchup dependent at that point. But, I mean, it is hard to beat them, right? I mentioned the once Florida took control of the game thing. I really do think that's what won Florida this game. But how many teams in the country can just begin a game like that against Auburn? Like, they can they kind of control their own destiny would be kind of my short answer.
I still think Auburn's the best team in the country. Yeah, like they're still going to be my number one tomorrow. That's for sure. And another note is just, I never thought they were like last year's UConn team. I never thought they were that really dominant second Villanova title run with like Mikal Bridges, who just couldn't miss, Jalen Brunson, who was just a dog. I never thought they were that good because they're not. They're not that good. They're not going to be the best. We're not going to talk about them as one of the best teams of the last 20 years. But I still think they're the best team in the country. And how many games is Auburn going to shoot 31% from three and 60% from the free throw line?
Sure.
I don't think it's going to happen again. I don't.
That's a
Michael question. So let me ask you this: both teams fully healthy, neutral court. Auburn, Alabama. You think Auburn?
Yeah, I think Auburn.
Yeah.
They play each other this upcoming Saturday in Tuscaloosa. I can't wait to preview that on Thursday's show.
Well, by the way, it could be 1 versus 2.
I will say this: we're about to talk about Duke. Both teams lost. They stay 1-2 in KenPom unchanged, because they had such a big lead in the net ratings that it only dropped them down a little bit, but neither one changed position. That's how good both these teams have been. Great win for Florida. They look national championship good. Bigs who are versatile. They rebound incredibly well. They don't play great defense, but they get stops when needed. And that offense, you have to score point for point with them most nights to beat them. And it's almost impossible to do it with that offense. Florida national championship good. Auburn just fine. Still probably the best team in the country. Still can go win a title. Great college basketball game. Incredible win by Florida yesterday. Let's talk about the other team. Number 2 in the ECB top 25, the Duke Blue Devils. We talked about, man, they might be able to run through the table here. They only had we looked at the schedule once they got by Louisville, once they dominated North Carolina. We looked at the schedule, ACC play, and thought maybe one more chance for a loss, and it was yesterday. And Clemson pulls out a big-time home win, 77-71. Little John Coliseum, we talked about Dickie V was there as his return. We've talked a lot about Little John Coliseum this year, about how underrated of a home court environment it is. And it showed up again, like it did for Kentucky, like it has for other ACC big-time games. They showed up and showed out yesterday for the Duke game. Clemson with a big win, 77-71. They found themselves down. They blew a lead. Flag hits a shot, puts Duke up 1. And then Clemson comes back. I think it was Chase Hunter hit a big shot for the go-ahead. Flag again late in the game. ISO ball goes to the right side. Hits a wet spot this time, but turns the ball over. Clemson ends up hitting free throws, winning late there, 77-71. Victor Locken, they have him listed at 6'11", but he's 7 foot. Transfer from Cincinnati like he did against Kentucky. Big-time performance against the Blue Devils yesterday. 22 points, only 4 rebounds, but they needed his scoring more on the interior, and that's what he gave them. Trevor, I'll come to you since you're the ACC guy. big win, not a huge surprise because we know how good Clemson is, especially at home, but nonetheless, a massive win for the Clemson Tigers.
Dude, yeah, like shout out to my guy Lucas McKay on their staff. I know that, coming into this game, it was obviously going to be figuring out, how do you remotely control Cooper Flagg, and I think they did an incredible job of that. I know down the stretch, even with the cramping, he was just going to do Cooper Flagg things. I think that performance just kind of shows you how incredible he really is, and how health determined he's going to be one of the best players in the next 15 years. But look, Chase Hunter's a dude. I think that's something that people have just not paid attention to enough this year. He's fighting for his all-ACC first team life right now. I know Terrence Oglesby thinks that. Obviously, T.O.'s a Clemson guy, so take that with a grain of salt. But Chase Hunter's a dude. To have that big bucket, to have the block, and to really that be the thing that seal it. That block was insane. This guy's an incredible two-way player. And look, I know you guys necessarily never put your foot down and said Duke might never lose again, right? I know you guys were kind of both. All three of you were kind of on the hey, let's just be realistic about this thing for a second. There are people that I know that I trust their basketball opinion that were saying that Duke won't lose again. Like there was people that were that sure about it. And I was like, did Clemson roll over and die? I was like, are you kidding me?
That's what made me sure they would lose one.
Right. And I was like, these are people that I really do trust. And
but it's just so hard to go undefeated in the league.
Correct. Now, do I agree that the last game they can actually probably really, truly lose is Illinois? Yeah, of course, right? I was like, it's Illinois and Clemson. Like, no offense to any of these other teams, right? Like, North Carolina, at the end of the year, things get weird, right? But it's at North Carolina. Like, again, Wake Forest, I know they got Wake Forest second to last game of the year again. Like, I get there's ones on the schedule, but if I looked at it when you guys asked the question and I said it's Clemson and Illinois, we're all realistic and we can all agree that was the case. And I just couldn't believe that people were discrediting the Tigers this much. Michael, I lowered him for a few weeks. I think Michael called me out on it. I lowered him a little bit. Was like, or I think I had put him up, and Mike was like, 15. That's a great. The Tigers. And I was like, yeah, they're a legit team, and they might be better than last year because Shefflin's really stepped into that role. He's not the offensive player that Tyson has been, and the guy after him, the other tall white dude that can shoot threes. Thank you, PJ Hall. I just slipped my mind. Saw him had a great game last year and still forgot his name. But you get my point. Shefflin's really filling into that role. Guys are buying into their opportunity. I think that's what's been really, really good. And Brown is awesome.
Yeah, you guys remember last year's tournament run for Clemson, obviously. PJ Hall was amazing. Shefflin was really, really good.
Hunter was awesome.
The guy who made the plays every time was Chase Hunter.
Bingo.
And he didn't have a great game today till down the stretch. He just made every play. He's a guy who shows up for big moments. That's just kind of who he is. And he showed up for this big moment. Right. It's like, of course he was going to show up. He didn't play well until down the stretch. Then he's the guy making the key free throws. He's the guy who gets that late bucket. He's the guy who gets the block, the steals, whatever it was. He was the guy who made the plays late. He is a really, really good talent. And I think he's another guy that I just completely forgot how good he was until last night. And he's just like, DeRosa, pay attention, man. Just pay attention. He's awesome. This doesn't change my large-scale opinion on Duke. I don't think I'll have them as the second best team in the country. And they're definitely they're not perfect. They don't have a true point. I think that would be my one drawback. It's Tyrese Proctor can run the point, but he's not a true point. And Sion James can do it as well, but they don't have a true point, which I think is one drawback. But they're so long, so good defensively, so many guys. But Chase Hunter, when it just came down to making play time, it was Chase Hunter time. And he showed he's a stud.
To your point, Tyrese Proctor, only 1 assist, 39 minutes. He did give him 23 points, so his scoring was a huge deal in this game, but only 1 assist from your starting point guard. Not ideal. Coach, I want to ask in kind of a more lighthearted way, but a serious way too. I think we did talk about this after the Kentucky win, some other games Clemson had. Ian Shefflin, I'm just talking about Josh when he played and when he coached. Ian Shefflin would drive me insane going against him because you look at him, he's 6'8", he's a kind of he barely has any vertical as a kind of, no offense, he's in great shape, but like a tubbier white dude. And you look at him and you're like, how are you letting this unathletic white tub get 15 rebounds and 15 points? Would that drive you crazy as a coach? Like, I have these athletic dudes that are 6'10", and you're letting this unathletic dude just eat you up in the paint.
Unfortunately, I was recruiting the unathletic dude, so I'm not quite sure how to answer that, except for the the appreciation I have for him. Just his toughness, he has also rebounding is such an interesting thing, right? Because it is athleticism and length. It's also positioning and desire.
Yep.
And I'm going to give him that kid great high level IQ on where the ball's coming off. His hands are terrific, and he's just got those things, those intangibles that overcome the things that you just talked about. And so, when I saw this game, and the reason I had my bank on it beat Clemson, I just thought it was a setup here. If Duke was going to lose, this was the day they were going to lose.
Yeah.
Clemson was good enough at their best to beat them. I'm not even sure they played their best, but they played pretty well. Hunter obviously made plays down the stretch, and I just thought it was just a really, really good setup. Look, and 2 weeks ago I had the worst bank on it in the history of bank on it. So I recovered UCLA a little bit last week. I got the Clemson one right. Hopefully I'm redeeming myself to the people.
Josh.
Sorry, real quick. I want to bring some up real quick, Trevor.
Okay, it's about Shefflin. It's about Shefflin, really quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that, like, look, I will say he has gotten more athletic and he has slimmed down.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just overtly say that. I interviewed him last year into the season against Carolina, and I mean, this dude, he put the work in this offseason, right? From everything I've heard, like, he is. That athleticism, I think, is just continuing. Guys sometimes just like unlock it as they grow in age. I mean, I'm sure Coach has a bunch of examples of that. But like, he definitely, like, it's one of those things that all of those things, to Coach's point about positioning and just will and motor, that combined with him getting better this offseason and knowing he's going to have to be even better because teams are going to target him differently. That's something that's been incredible to me. It's just how he has trimmed down and he has put muscle on and he has used those things to his advantage even more so.
I think that's a great point. And I don't want people like Clemson or if Shefflin listen to this, I don't want to think I'm disrespecting. Like, it's a lighthearted jab, and I would hope that maybe he would understand I'm just joking. But to Coach's point too about positioning and a lot of its effort, I was always taught, and I taught my kids, rebounding as a skill is more about effort and desire than anything. Who wants it the most on your positioning? My hometown, from like, I think it was the year 2002, 2004, the state's leading rebounder in the state of Indiana came from my hometown, my school. And it came from a dude who was like 5'11" at best, maybe 5'10", but strong as an ox football player. And he was so great at positioning and wanting to get the ball. He averaged like 13 and a half rebounds as like a 5'11" underneath, like post wing kind of person, and dominated the backboards just because he had a desire to go get the ball. So I think that's a great point on positioning. And again, I'm not disparaging the kid. It's lighthearted. We appreciate his game. He is really talented. I just thought every time I see him dominate like these bigger athletic dudes, I'm like, you guys ought to be embarrassed. Like, you ought to be embarrassed for that. Let's go back to Friday night, guys, because I want to say this. We all know Danny Hurley's amazing. But I have a fun time with some of the UConn fans who are bold and brash. I think that if I'm just being honest, as a fan base, they're probably drive me crazy more than anybody because of their arrogance. And to see them get it stuffed back in their face a couple times makes me happy. I'm not going to lie. And Danny Hurley said, what was it, earlier this year when he told the referee, I'm the best effing coach in the game. Well, Pitino's an all-timer and kind of taught you a thing or two Friday night because St. John's continues their hot streak, moves their win streak to 10 in a row. On the road at Connecticut, mind you, after they fell behind early to come back and win 68-62. We talked about one of the big storylines with Marquette and Connecticut last week. If they can get through these games, the Big East is firmly in their grasp, and they have done it, Coach. What an impressive performance by the Johnnies. For the first time all year this week, after these two games, I can look at St. John's and say, that's a team with the way they're tough, the way they play defense. They've got an elite coach, an all-timer. They can go win a title this year. And I sincerely mean that.
Well, look, I've definitely come around those St. John's, and I've picked them every game since we've, 3 or 4 ago. I stopped, remember Trevor, I said I couldn't get it right. Well, now I've gotten them right, maybe 3 in a row, and I probably won't pick against them again for a while. I tremendous tip of the cap to what, like I told you too in the last show on Thursday, Michael, and I'll let you talk about this game a little more, is how St. John's has just grasped this identity, right? And grown through it. Because they gave UConn at 24 points the first 10 minutes of the game. I was like, whoa, they are scoring on this team. And then it was Clamp City after that. And then down the stretch, and I give Coach Pitino also credit for giving his assistant coach the props for the play on the inbounds. It was a terrific play. The kid freshman tried to cut it, and really good play. The kid hit the shot. But Michael, I'll let you talk on it more, but that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, McNeely played in this game too. Like that was definitely one of the things. When we broke this game down, we were talking about it. He did end up going, and he played pretty well. He was their leading scorer. He had 18 points, 11 boards. He played a decent bit. Terrace Reed also with 12 and 15 off the bench. But St. John's is just tough. They're just tough, and they made UConn's life really, really tough. 22 turnovers for UConn. How often does that happen to a UConn team? Not often. There are not many teams that can do that. St. John's is one of them.
At home, Michael.
Yeah, and what they were doing, like, so UConn, like, they run, I mean, we all know how complicated some of the actions UConn runs. St. John's had the athletes to switch it, but they would wait till, like, the last screen or, like, the second to last screen to jump and switch it. And then they jump and bite, like, solo balls coming off 3 ball screens. They know where the last one is. Then they have a guy to just jump and stun after he was really getting going early. He didn't do anything in the second half. They completely turned his water off, and that completely changed the game. This St. John's team is awesome defensively. You mentioned, Josh, you think they're good enough to win a title? No, their offense is just not good enough. I think they're one of those teams that is good enough to beat the champion on any given night, but not good enough to be the champion. They can win 1 game, but if you're asking them to win 6 games, I just don't think they have the offensive consistency. But that defense is up there with any team in the country. Just the amount of athletes, the way they can switch it, the way they're really well coached, well wired, and they're just so tough. That little token pressure they put on UConn even really threw them off. Like, they were awesome.
I understand what you're saying, and I know it's maybe a stretch to say St. John's, but I'll give you a couple things here real quick. One, that defense is going to carry every single night. If they force turnovers in the NCAA tournament, that's all you need sometimes is a couple turnovers, runouts, then they can squeeze your water off and it's over with. NCAA tournament rims historically are tight. They don't favor great shooting teams early on. If St. John's can build a lead and play behind that defense, then these higher powered offenses are going to have a hard time trying to score on them. I think they can muck it up, especially let's say they make the Final Four with the backdrop. The line of sight shooting within a dome is much harder. We see it every time when they play in these gigantic domes. It takes a while for shooters to kind of find their line of sight there to time it up. And by then, maybe St. John's has built a 15-point lead and it's hard to come back. And I know Virginia had better talent. I know this. They had better offensive firepower, but Virginia played behind an elite defense and won a national title. So who they play in that tournament in the finals? They played Texas Tech, who did what? Played an elite defense, had a star to go get them a bucket when they needed to, but played 2 teams made the national title game behind elite defenses, mucking it up, and they each had a star. I know Kadary Richmond's not that guy that you want shooting threes, but when it gets nut-cutting time and he needs to go get a bucket, he's going to go get a bucket. I think St. John's can go win a national title. I think they definitely can make a Final Four. I think they win a title. Coach, I want to touch on real quick. You talked about that baseline out of bounds play that St. John's ran to pretty much seal the game. What a thing of beauty. It was like a dummy curl that got the Connecticut kid trying to jump it into a flare screen back into the corner and then have the balls to run that, catch and shoot and make the shot. I think that was RJ Luis that made the shot, right? Yes. And what a play. What a play to fake the dummy curl right back into a flare screen where you have the kid trapped in the double screen there. Beautiful play.
I think, and I'd love to be able to ask Coach Pitino this because, you know, you've seen versions of that play late in the clock before, but I wonder if McNeely had trailed him, I wonder if they were going to rescreen for him still to come back to that baseline shot.
Almost like a circle cut right there, right?
Because he cut it, they bumped it, and he screened him in. I'm just curious if he went all the way to the rim, if he was coming right back out off a rescreen. Well, you know, we'll never know. But it was a great play, big time shot, big time win. St. John's is tough, man.
The one thing I'll say too, like really quick on the national, Michael, say that line again because I think it was incredible. The champion, what the thing about the champion?
They're good enough to beat the champion, not good enough to be the champion.
I think it's awesome. I think it's a great point. The recipe for failure would be their top 53, they're 53rd in tempo. So they're the 53rd fast tempo team, but they don't shoot a lot of threes and they don't make a lot of threes. Like that to me is just a recipe for disaster. I know in the tournament, I think it might favor, I think to Josh's point, them at that point. They're the second best defense for crying out loud. Just an overarching thought about Rick Pitino and the way this team has kind of turned it around is we talked about it at nauseum about the first year, second year thing for him. He's one of the best. He's obviously one of the best for a reason. He's one of the best at learning from his mistakes, learning from how a team was. And this is no discredit to a team last year. I saw him at the Charleston Classic. I have that viral video you guys have all seen where he slammed his hand on the desk about the scouting report. That was, right in the early part of the season where MTEs really test you. And I think from that moment on, he realized that for the way he wanted these guys to play, that he needed to completely rebuild the roster to that form. And that is this team to a T. I know a lot of it has to go his way, the way we recruit, you got to pay the guys, all that stuff. But he got a team that he knows for a fact he can go out every night, offensive struggles aside, and they can win that game. And I think that was the most impressive part from just how far they've come when I saw him last November and just his frustrations to where he's been around this game long enough. He knows how to put a team together, especially in this era. I think it favors him. And that's what makes them so fun is like they're a perfectly built team that he knows he can win with.
Johnny fans, I got you. I see you as a national championship contender.
Final Four contender, I'm with you. I'll bark at that. But
hey, you get to the Final Four, man. Anything can happen. So we'll see. Let's talk about another, Coach, to your point, SEC road victory yesterday. Top 15 showdown. Number 12 Texas A&M goes into Missouri, who's number 15, and pulls out a win behind a Wade Taylor game-winning three. The Aggies win 67-64. Pharrell Payne gives the Aggies 20 points, 4 rebounds. Henry Coleman in 31 minutes, 6 points, but 16 rebounds. And then Wade Taylor was 15, including the game winner. They started on a 12-0 run, allowed Missouri to cut or crawl back and get a lead at home. And Missouri's been so great at home this year. I think they had like a 14 or 15 game home win streak. So a tough building to go play at right now. And then A&M pulls one out of the fire, Coach. We know how good Buzz Williams' team is. We know how great Wade Taylor is. Big time performance yesterday. The Aggies, after kind of a little downturn there when Wade Taylor was out, they figured it out and they look like the real deal again.
We've gone through this now into February 9th, talking about so many different good teams and also talking about so many significant injuries to teams, like really good players that have missed 2, 3, 4 games, at a time. And A&M without Wade Taylor is a different team. He is, and that is a cold-blooded 3 he hit to win that game, confident all-league type player guard. And again, in the SEC, backed him up. I've completely flipped my whole script here on this, how good these teams are to win on the road. There's the margin of error so thin that these teams are winning on the road when you have players like that. And man, he is tough.
This is it. This is the A&M team. I have been barking up the tree all year. This is the performance that they can finally win. They kept getting in these games. The Texas loss, right? They obviously blew a big lead. The Alabama game, I think they had in their grasp at one point. The Oregon game back, it was a 10-point game, but I think they could come back even with Wade Taylor. He's the best guy in the country at. I don't care if I've missed 14 shots. I think they said it on the broadcast verbatim. It was like, I don't care if he missed 14 shots. He's got the cojones to take the last one and the best one, right? And this is a team that I think this is the best iteration of a Buzz Williams team at Texas A&M. I think this is my team that if they get the right kind of draw, we'll call it. So I think they're positioning themselves for a 3 or a 4 seed. Again, no bracketologists, don't ask me, but they're positioning themselves really, really well where they're going to they could get a favorable draw. And we're looking up and they're kind of the Clemson of last year where they're in the Elite 8 and they're in a really good position to win to make the Final Four. I think this is a Final Four caliber team. And this is the game that I'll point to that I think could really snap everything in place for them. And look, when you offensive rebound percentage at 42.5%, it's even a stupid number just saying it out loud. When you can generate that many second opportunities for yourself to get to a scorer like Zurich Phelps or Wade Taylor, then you're going to put yourself in position. You just have to defend at an elite level, and they do that. They're 6th. So,
yeah, I feel like I look at A&M pretty similarly to the way I look at St. John's. Some of the skill sets are very different. I don't think A&M's defense is as good, particularly in forcing turnovers, but then A&M also has the offensive rebounding that kind of counteracts it. And the thing with A&M is that I don't see with St. John's. A&M has the star in Wade Taylor. Wade Taylor can win you a game. If Wade Taylor puts up a 35-point game in the tournament and they beat Houston by 4, that's not going to really stun anybody just because he's Wade Taylor. That's just kind of what he does. However, he can also shoot you out of a game. And if they lose early in the tournament, it'll be Wade Taylor shooting 6 of 34 or something like that. That's extreme, but broad strokes,
He does that. They're losing.
Yeah.
He's done that before, by the way. He's done that before.
Yeah.
But the way they won this game is just the way their identity is built. They're getting deflections or just being annoying. and they're getting those offensive rebounds. And the other team's not having a great shooting game. They're a great shooting team. They don't hit shots, and they find a way. Jacob Cruz off the bench was 3 of 4 for Missouri. But other than that, that means the rest of the team combined for 2 of 17 from 3. It's just A&M gets in your grill. They make you play to their level, and you got to win their game. And that's teams that can do that are always going to cause problems.
Coach, you'll love this stat from our friends at Ken Palm here, because we're talking a lot about how many SEC road teams go and get victories. The home win percentage right now through 82 league games is at 57.3%. Only 47 of 82 games at home have been won in this league so far. Blowout percentage, meaning games that are 19 points or over, only 17 of 82. So we're playing a lot of close games in this league, and a lot of road teams are winning. It's so incredibly competitive, yet so weird that home court advantage isn't really showing up in a league like this right now. I guess that goes back to how good the league is. Incredible win by A&M. Missouri's still going to be fine. I know they took it on the chin twice this week, but that's life in this conference, man. You lose a couple, then you may go on a win streak. We'll see what happens. Oh, and I did find out the answer from a show or two ago. We talked about the SEC tournament. All 16 teams do make the conference tournament. They've expanded Wednesday. Wednesday used to only be 2 games. Now it's like 4 games, and you play Thursday and so on. So all 16 do make the conference tournament.
I'm here for all of it, baby.
Yeah. As they should, by the way. It's like 18, I can understand the way Big Ten ACC did it, but SEC, especially this year, I mean, even these bottom, like South Carolina can.
I'm all for it.
I can't wait. It's gonna be the best tournament to watch that early in the week.
We've got some other games we want to talk about here quickly before we move on. Arizona in another top 25 showdown last night. Number 10 Texas Tech went on the road to number 16 Arizona in a really competitive game. Arizona gets yet another win to continue their hot win streak here. 82-73 over the Red Raiders. I watched this game, stayed up for it. No Trey Townsend for Arizona in this game. Caleb Love, Jaden Bradley combined or had 16 apiece. They get 15 apiece off the bench from Henry Visar and KJ Lewis, 14 from Toby Awaka. Really balanced scoring effort from Arizona. They got in control. They kind of kept Texas Tech at arm's length at pretty much the whole second half. Texas Tech would make a run, then Arizona would counter with a big bucket. I thought Jaden Bradley was phenomenal in this game. I thought Toby Awaka in the first half really gave Arizona a spark, and then to finally get some production out of the 7-foot sophomore Henry Visar. Thought he was incredible off the bench in this game. They limited Chance McMillan to 8 points. That being Texas Tech, I'm sorry. JT Toppin, 21 for the Red Raiders, but really impressive win. Arizona, we left them for dead in late December, and another one of these teams that have just figured things out. They're 17-6, 11-1 in Big 12 play. 11-1, tied with Houston. Guys, Arizona's figured it out for sure now.
It's a little, to me, they're different, obviously, how they're constructed and how they play, but similar in the trajectory of the team finding its identity as St. John's.
Yep.
They have in December, they're a totally different team than they were in December. And they've now established, maybe roles, maybe they've whatever, hit a couple wins to pull out their confidence. And boy, have they been impressive. I mean, because I'm very impressed with Texas Tech, by the way. And so I think Arizona, big win.
DeRosa, I'm sorry. I'll ask you, Trevor. Next Saturday, when we talk about it on Thursday's show, the Big 12 could be decided next Saturday when Arizona plays host to Houston. Mark that on your calendar.
Yeah, it's going to be incredible. And obviously, I probably won't be on Thursday, but just for the sake of recent around here. But I mean, I'd be far-fetched to think Houston can't, obviously win that game. One thing I'll say about Arizona that I think I'm just like, it took me so long to kind of come to grips with was I think now that they're comfortable, Coach mentioned the roles. Yeah. There's just so many guys that you have to think about. There's so many guys that you have to like some teams. It's like, okay, they're starting 5, this and this and that. Like Anthony Dillester scored 2 points in this game, and he's capable of scoring 20 on any given night. Like I mentioned him before, obviously, guy I covered last year, but just from the fact that like every night it's somebody different. Like at this point, it's just mitigating the Caleb Love risk. And I think they've done that really, really well. And he obviously hit that ridiculous 70 whatever footer on a night that he had a terrible game, but he still came up in the biggest moment. They just have so many guys that you have to prepare for. They're almost like they're almost just impossible to scout, it feels like right now, because they're obviously winning. Guys are really built into their roles. And then each guy can bring something so unique to the table that they're just a hard game to stay out. And if there's a team that was going to beat them, it was going to be Texas Tech, because that's their only Big 12 loss. So Texas Tech obviously knows how to scout them because they beat them before in Lubbock. And so that's what was so surprising to me is obviously Houston is a team that you just mentioned when they play this week, that it's, talk about a team knowing how to scout you defensively. They're going to be fine figuring that out. It's just how that game goes. But can someone remind me what happened with Walton? Because I was watching 4 games at one time. Like, did Walton go out? Like, he had 7 minutes?
Honestly, God, I don't remember. Do you, Michael?
No.
Okay.
I don't remember what happened.
Because obviously his presence is really, really important for them. But
I was watching the game and just don't remember seeing what
Christian
happened.
Anderson also played 33 minutes, so I'm assuming he might have just taken some of Kerwin Walton's minutes, and he's been awesome for Texas Tech all season. So it wouldn't surprise me if he just kind of ate into his minutes naturally. But yeah, I can't speak on it there. But what I wanted to speak to on this game real quick, this is another game. Arizona they made 4 threes, and they put up 82 points. How do you do that? One, they got to the free throw line consistently, took 23 free throws. They just found a way to get to the line, and they're going to convert those more often than not. And also, they just completely dominated the interior again. Texas A&M is a team Texas Tech is a team that normally kind of plays pretty well in the interior. JT Toppin you mentioned he had 21 points. He took 21 shots, and that's a big guy. They did a good job containing him. And Texas A&M shot 38% inside the arc. Arizona State, 58%. They just dominated the interior. They were getting driving lanes, getting to the bucket, or they're just, the bigs, Tobe Awaka, 6'10", Henry Vizar, 5'7", both from 2-point range. Those guys just were dominant on the interior. They were the better interior players. They set the tone. And yeah, this was an Arizona game throughout, in my opinion. Texas Tech definitely, I believe they were they might have gotten the lead at some points. If not, they tied it. But Arizona just to me felt like they were in control the entire time.
Well, Tech kept trying to hit threes, or not trying. They did hit a bunch of threes there in the final 45 seconds to make it interesting. And then Arizona was able to stretch it with free throws and all that. But an incredible late night game. Arizona continues their hot streak since falling to 4-5 from the loss back in December to UCLA. To get to where they are now is really impressive. I want to rapid fire a couple of these before we move on to looking ahead to this upcoming week. Michigan State gets back on the right side of the win column here with a win over Oregon yesterday, 86-74. In a game early in the second half, they trailed by 14 points. Did not look good coming off back-to-back losses last week out in LA. They bounced back, had an incredible second half performance by Jace Richardson. How about this? He drops 29 in front of his pops, in front of Mateen Cleaves, and I think Mo Pete was there. A lot of the dudes that was stars for Michigan State's 2000 national championship team that I would assume if, family-like, considering that his dad played and grew up great friends with those dudes, probably consider them like uncles or whatever. What a performance. What a win for Michigan State, who needed it off of back-to-back losses. Jace Richardson, if any other year there wasn't a guy named Cooper Flagg playing as a freshman in the same class, Jace Richardson would be right there in contention as considered one of the best freshmen in the country. He has been phenomenal this year, and it's a milestone for Tom Izzo. With the win yesterday, ties Bob Knight for wins, most all-time wins in the Big Ten with 353. And how about this? On Tuesday night, he gets a chance to take the lead and break Bob Knight's tie with him, and they play Indiana at home. You talk about storybook. And also, you want to add to it, Tom Izzo's first ever Big Ten win, 1996. You guessed it, against Bob Knight in Indiana. Talk about full circle moment. Talk about full circle moments.
The game's at Michigan State on Tuesday?
It's at Michigan State, yes, sir.
See, that surprises me that they did the celebration that they did yesterday on the tie. When I figured the next game was on the road, because if they won it, they wouldn't be able to celebrate them.
Yeah,
that is weird. You're right. It did feel very celebrated. It was true. Yeah.
They gave him the mic. He talked. He was emotional as I've ever seen him.
I think part of that too, though, because he had such affinity for Bob Knight, that maybe tying him, obviously meant a whole lot. And I think maybe those former players like Mateen Cleaves, Mo Pete, and Jason Richardson being back, you know what I'm saying? Maybe that played into some of it too.
Get the private jet, forget him there on Tuesday.
But incredible win by Michigan State, bouncing back. Michael, I know you really like this Oregon team, but you can't blow a 14-point lead in a game of that magnitude.
It was almost quack worthy while Michael unmutes there. I almost sent him a quack last night, but
Dude, they were so good in that first half. Like the shot Barthélemy hit at the end of the half was just money. Shellstead was awesome. Yeah. And then Jason Richardson, I mean, you mentioned it. He was spectacular in that second half. I mean, they could not stop him. I'm watching Eric Dixon here putting together one of the best halves I've seen all season from a player. One of the next guys, like right there, Jason Richardson also, just yesterday. They could not stop him. He was getting to the rim at will, and he was hitting tough shots. He was truly spectacular.
I know people don't want to think about it because Michigan State or whatever it may be. We've said this before. This looks like one of those prime Izzo teams, fellas. If they make a run to the Final Four, the way Izzo's been prone to do, I wouldn't be shocked. He's got a really good team.
You know what I feel like doing again after we did this maybe 2 weeks ago was reading that list of now how many teams we think can make the Final Four.
we
honestly, there's some more than added to that in the last 2 weeks. Do you guys agree?
I completely agree. Well, with the emergence of Arizona, who I don't think was on the list, Michigan State, I don't remember if we had them, but they're definitely on there. St. John's now. A&M. Honestly, the next team we're going to talk about, they're figuring things out. Creighton gets another win. Creighton gets another win. Marquette loses again. Creighton at home, we talked about that home court advantage. Creighton gets another big-time win to run their win streak up to 9 in a row. Getting revenge from their last loss back on January 3rd against Marquette. This Creighton team, DeRosa, they figured things out. Kalkbrenner's playing back at an all Big East level. Ashworth has been great. And this is all while losing Pop Isaacs. So Creighton looks like another team that maybe's figured it out and could make a run. They're 18-6, 11-2 in the Big East now.
And you ready for Creighton's next 2 games?
Connecticut, St. John's.
UConn comes to town, then they go to St. John's. Yeah, that's going to be
We'll learn a lot about them. We really will in the next week.
100%.
Honestly, their schedule lightens up. The final 5 are Georgetown, DePaul at home, Xavier and Seton Hall on the road, and then you get Butler on March 8th at home. They get through these next 2, they could continue to run the table.
Jemiah Neal, to me, has really emerged as the third guy for them. I think he's been Isaacs went down. Honestly, they might be better without Pop Isaacs just because of how Jemiah Neal has been. I'll say it. The 2 small guards, or you have a guy who can defend multiple positions and handle the ball. Jemiah Neal's been awesome. He is truly, he's really emerged, and his emergence has allowed Creighton to really take that next step up. Creighton's not a team. You know that thing, I don't know if you guys do this. I do this all the time where you watch something so much that you're just poking holes in it. You're like, oh, they're not that good. I think that's me with every single Big East team. I don't trust Creighton at all in the tournament. I don't trust them at all. Ryan Kalkbrenner is a dominant player, and he's going to win the battle on the interior on both ends. But I think if you can turn Ashworth's water off, they're going to be kind of they're still very vulnerable. And they're going to, they've been good in Big East play, really good. Neal's been awesome. Kalkbrenner is spectacular. You're not going to find many bigs that are going to match up with Ryan Kalkbrenner. And Ashworth is just that dude. But man, they've been really good lately. And Marquette gave them a punch, and they punched back. And that full credit to Creighton. They look damn good.
I want to ask on them.
What if you had a Creighton-Michigan Sweet 16 game?
Interesting, right?
Yeah. I think that would
be
a
too big when they have one. So
yeah.
Then you're going to have, I'm assuming it's either Jason Green or Jackson McAndrew on Danny Wolf.
Oof.
That's barbecue chicken.
Some cool matchups. There's some really good teams playing well right now.
Let me ask real quick, just a real quick answer on Marquette. They've lost 3 in a row to the best competition the Big East has to offer, though. Connecticut, St. John's, Creighton. In 5 of their 6 losses, though, they have not scored 70 points. They only scored 70 against Iowa State, weirdly enough, on the road. But Dayton, 63, Xavier, 57, Connecticut, 69, St. John, 64, and last night against Creighton, 67. Is there cause for concern with Marquette at all moving forward?
Yes. I will say last night, I thought they looked, or yesterday, excuse me, it was during the day. I thought they looked better than they have on this run. Particularly, they got a really good game from Cam Jones. They just kind of needed him to emerge. But yeah, since the new year, I think they're playing. I think if you go on Torvik and sort it, I don't have it up in front of me. But they were the 60th best team in the country. They don't look like the same team. Their advantage early in the season was continuity. Jones returning, Mitchell returning, Ross returning, and Ross is playing a little injured right now. I don't know how healthy he is. Ben Gold returning, David Joplin returning. These guys have been playing together since preschool. That was their advantage. But once everybody catches up to them, and their bench players, Royce Parham is good, but Damaris Owens hasn't emerged. Zayd Lowry hasn't really emerged. Trey Norman, if you sort on Torvik as like the best high major offensive players, if you sort by the worst, number one is Trey Norman, just offensive rating. He just hasn't given them literally anything. The drop between him and Cam Jones is as big as there possibly is for any player in the country. It's substantial that, their bench players haven't emerged, and that was something they needed to step up. And the starting lineup they're good, but they're not great. So, I think there is legitimate cause for concern. They're a team that could get bit very early in the tournament, and it wouldn't surprise me. They're going to need Cam Jones to go ham.
Well, look at also their center coach, Ben Gold. He's scored a combined 2 points in the last 4 games. 2 points. Before that, he was giving them decent numbers, 11, 8, here and there, earlier in the year, 14, 10. So he was giving them more. 2 points from your starting center in the last 4 games is not going to get it done.
No, and that sums up part of their struggles, and it's not going to get it done. It's not going to get done against those good teams for sure. Maybe it does against some of the bottom half teams, not against a red hot Creighton team. And I don't know, Kalkbrenner 8 for 9 from the floor, 4 blocks. Anyway, interesting where those two teams are going.
Trevor, you've been, I think, with me on the kind of Kansas don't believe in them train. They lose again yesterday on the road to their in-state rival, Kansas State. K-State, since Jerome Tang has been head coach there, has not lost to the Jayhawks in the Octagon of Doom. K-State, we've kind of joked about them. They may be the best 12-11 team in America right now, but Kansas continues their struggles. They dropped a 16-7, 7-5 in the league. Coach, I'm old enough to remember when Kansas won this league like 18 years in a row. Now they're 7-5 in the league. They've got real issues, gentlemen. They've got real issues.
What's so fascinating too is like the Kansas State part of it, real quick. Like, talk about guys buying into their roles. Like, I think it just took this team an extra month to do that. I really don't know. I think it's a simple answer, right? But these guys just seem more comfortable playing with each other. I still have, legitimate concerns, but obviously they've got legitimate concerns about even making the tournament at this point. I know they're trending in the right direction, but they've got to keep winning, and they got to keep winning well. Kansas wise though, I'm never going to doubt Bill Self till the day I die, but these last 2 years have been really, really weird. And I just don't know if it's Dickinson. I don't know if it's the teams around him. I don't know if it's how they're going to build this roster, but I think I need another year or two without Dickinson around, with Bill Self on the coaching staff to start really worrying it. But just from this year's standpoint, last year they had injuries. They could point to that and say that was their problem, right? Injuries forced them to have no depth, and no depth caused them to lose those games. This year, I don't think I have those concerns. And so I just wonder what another year would look like without a guy like Dickinson to kind of build a new team and kind of reset a little bit for Bill Self. It's going to happen eventually, right? No coach is perfect forever. Even Dean Smith, Coach K, you're going to have down years. It just is what it is. This was 2 down years, and it's kind of weird.
Coach, I want to ask you from a coaching perspective, and I'm not speculating anything because Bill Self does not seem like he's in that Roy Williams, Tony Bennett mentality yet, but he's been at Kansas a long time, been highly successful, 2 national titles, a shit ton of Final Fours, even more wins than that. But recent struggles, I don't know how well he likes kind of this new era of college basketball, constantly have to rebuild your roster when you could guarantee you bring in kids for 3-4 years before, mix them in with the high level one and dones. I'm not saying anything he's going to retire, but if you're Bill Self, do you think maybe it's starting to wear on you a little bit, kind of this new era, and maybe that's played into some of this factor of just not getting the roster right or whatever it may be?
I have to believe that most people are frustrated in this new situation, especially the guys that have been as successful as he, Tony, Jim, the guys that are all kind of quit. So I'm just saying this, and I have no idea, and I agree. Bill Self, he's a Hall of Fame legend. What more can you say about the man? Mm-hmm. But if on March 20th or April 5th he said I quit, I would not be shocked.
So that's what I was getting to. And again, I'm not speculating. For all we know, he's going to.
I'm not trying to be controversial. I'm not trying. I just wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah. So that's what I was getting to. I'm not saying he's going to retire or nothing, but part of me wonders now, especially with kind of more frustrating teams that he's had and he's maybe not as used to it, if he doesn't look at it and think, I don't have anything left to prove, I'm going to step away for a little bit. Look, that's all I'm putting out there. It's would not be shocked. DeRosa. Speaking of, how about this? Last couple of games, DeRosa. Go ahead. You got something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say real quick. I think a lot of his portal evaluations have been pretty bad. Like when AJ Storr entered the portal, it was like, is this a guy people really want? 3 schools in 3 years, very clearly, like just in it for himself. Is that the guy you really want to recruit and kind of hinge your offense on? That was weird to me. And then Nick Timberlake 2 years back.
Mm-hmm.
He was a dud. Like, I think some of his portal evaluations have, like, I think that's like kind of the root of this.
Michael, do you think Griffin was a poor evaluation or is just having a bad year?
I think he's just having a bad year.
Yeah, me too. So that's a tough one, right?
Well,
it is. Yeah. Just sometimes.
I like that because anybody would have tucked Rylan Griffin, but I like the AJ Storr point. I don't know how he was going to fit with Kansas. And think about who they lost in the process. They bring in AJ Storr, who they expected coming from Wisconsin would give them something. And you lose LeBaron Philon to Alabama because of it, who was originally committed to Kansas. You give Kansas LeBaron Philon the way he's been playing Alabama, maybe this offense is completely different. So, so I agree with the evaluation.
Different style of team. I think Philon fits Alabama better too, though. So I'll just say that.
Yeah. I agree with that. So it's something to keep an eye on. We're not insinuating. I just think it's a noteworthy thing. Last thing, real quick. We had a pair of teams who needed to get right, got healthy, got players back, got big time wins yesterday in Iowa State and Kentucky. Anything on either of those two? Because clearly when they're full strength, they're a much different team than when they're out a starting point guard or a big man or whoever it may be.
I'm just beating the dead drum at this point, but Momcilovic is around and they start winning again. Weird.
Yeah.
No, I'm just going to leave it at that. In South Carolina, just credit to them for even making that game competitive at one point. So,
yeah.
I think a lot of this is just like kind of the schedule's getting easier and these teams can kind of settle in. I think we're going to see the same thing with Kansas, frankly. If you look at their next few games, like their next game is Colorado comes to town. They're not losing to Colorado. And like just
barbecue chicken, my friend.
Yeah, like that. Yeah, and then after that, they do the mountain trip at Utah, BYU. Might lose one of those. The mountain trip is tough just based on elevation and all. But then Oklahoma State comes to town. Then you go to Colorado before Texas Tech, and then you have that really like gauntlet towards the end of the season. But like those are 5 very winnable games. You got to get right in that time. And I think the Kentucky and Iowa State had get right games, and they got right.
Yeah, I'll tell you what's amazing. Is Colorado 0-12 in the Big 12?
They are.
Yeah.
They said it last night. Yeah.
And I'm telling you right now, Tad Boyle is one of the most underrated and terrific coaches in the last 15 years in this sport.
They knocked Florida off in the tournament last year. Florida was really good last
year. They won at Maui this year.
It's unbelievable that I didn't see their full schedule. Can they go over?
Let me look. I'll pull it up.
Their only game KenPom has them projected to win. They play so UCF comes to town. They have a 47% chance to win that. And then TCU comes to town the last game of the season. They have a 56% chance to win that. They have to get one of those two.
Yeah, TCU can beat them.
Hey, it's just the ups and downs, coach. Like we talked about Dennis Gates 2 years ago in his first year, incredible in the SEC, doesn't win a game in the league last year. And now we talk about Missouri with glowing light around them. And maybe Colorado's going through one of those years right now. We'll bounce back next year.
He's just a terrific coach. He's just shocking.
Look at the guys he had last year. He had 3 NBA players. I mean, that's like that alone elevates your floor, right?
Yeah. So really interesting stuff. Teams who needed to get right got healthy and got right. Big wins by by Florida and by Clemson. A lot of college basketball action. What we're going to do now, as always, is shout out our sponsors and friends over at W Energy. Are you tired of drinking the Monsters and the Red Bulls that give you a temporary energy boost, but you feel like shit afterwards? How about you check out our friends over at W Energy? W is a clean energy drink that is made to give you focus with no crash, jitters, or angst like other energy drinks. They have no maltodextrin fillers, do not use artificial dyes, and are made in an FDA-inspected facility right here in the United States of America. If you go visit www.w.gg right now, go find what you like over there. Get you a tub of, as you see on the screen here, the Galaxy Grenade. Really good flavors, little different off the beaten path, not like your normal cherries or limes or anything. Good mix of stuff. You scoop a thing of the powder, put it in a water bottle, shake it up real good. It tastes great. It doesn't have any weird aftertaste to it. And you do get that jolt of energy for on the go at work. If you're a streamer, if you're planning to stay up all night and watch college football or basketball or whatever it may be, go visit our friends at W Energy. Get yourself something. Use a promo code ECB10 at checkout, and you will get 10% off your order. We appreciate W Energy for coming on board with us this year for everything college basketball. Go do them a solid and do us a solid. Go visit W Energy. Get yourself a supply. Use our promo code and save yourself some money. Let's talk about this upcoming week, gentlemen. Most of the big games that I have scheduled to talk about are on Super Tuesday. I think there's one top 25 team playing on Monday. I have to go back and check. I think that. And then Wednesday's kind of a weird slate. So let's talk about Super Tuesday. Let's begin in a rivalry game on Tuesday night in Rupp Arena. If you remember 2 weeks ago, Kentucky shorthanded goes to Tennessee, takes down the Vols when they shot like 45 3-point shots. I don't think Rick Barnes is going to tell this team to come into Rupp Arena and shoot 45 or 40 plus, or maybe even 30 plus 3-point attempts this time. Kentucky gets Lamont Butler healthy. Jackson Robinson now dealing with a wrist injury. You just never know how these teams are going to play, and we've talked a lot about SEC teams this year going on the road and securing big victories. Coach, I'm coming to you first. Can Kentucky, now that they're healthy, can they sweep Tennessee on Tuesday night?
First, I want to say congratulations, 70 minutes in before mentioning Kentucky. Proud of you.
No. It was earlier. We talked about it at the end of the last segment.
It was just briefly, though.
Okay, Josh, I like them Tuesday night.
Yeah,
I do. I'm taking Kentucky, fellas, especially with Butler and I know Robinson. That's a concern, but he played, didn't he, Josh?
Who, Jackson?
Yeah.
Yeah, he played okay. You could tell the wrist was bothering him. He got hit one time going for a loose ball rebound, and he had to get subbed out of the game, but came back a couple minutes later. They said he got hurt Friday night in practice, so I assumed I can't believe I was screaming at not the TV, but to my dad watching the game. Once Kentucky got up big, I was like, man, I wouldn't put him back in the final 7-8 minutes. I just wouldn't. Right. But they did. He played a segment and then went back out. I don't know. He played okay. He fought through it. You could tell a lot. You could tell it was bothering him, Coach, because his shots early were short, and maybe he couldn't get the snap that he normally does, get the lift with his legs. He did make a couple of big shots in the first half, early second half. I think he ended up with 8 points, but yeah, you need him healthy. Now it's so funny. You get Lamont back, who started, played a lot of minutes, looked good, and then Jackson's hurt. So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Well, hopefully he plays. I like Kentucky to win on Tuesday night.
I'll be short and sweet. I think the Vols get right. I think they split the series, and I hope they play a third time in Nashville.
Yeah, I'm with Trev. I'm going to punch back. I don't know how many times a team's going to shoot the lights out against Tennessee. I don't know if it's going to happen twice. If it does, I'll tip my cap and say fair play. I get Tennessee.
Well, interesting. You know how I've been. I normally take against Kentucky in these here lately just because I don't have a good read on them. But with Lamont being back, you could see – I know South Carolina is not good. They're a really bad team this year. But there's certain things, Coach, and you could attest this better than anybody. It doesn't matter necessarily who you play. It's a matter how they look and how they play. And this team clearly is much better with Lamont Butler on the floor defensively too.
No question.
Defensively, I know South Carolina is not great. We get that.
Yeah.
But the fact they gave their best defensive effort yesterday, and if this was 2 weeks ago without him, South Carolina probably still loses, but they probably score 75 plus. The fact that they were able to cut their water off and hold them below 60 really makes me excited, or at least encouraged. If Jackson's healthy at home in Rupp Arena, I think Kentucky's going to shoot the lights out again with them rims and the way they play there. The crowd is going to be electrified. I got the Cats sweeping the Vols this year. I think they win in a close one. I think
we'll see.
Three or 4 points.
The one thing I'll say too, and correct me if I'm wrong, Butler did not play against Arkansas, right?
Right. No, he's missed. His last game was Vanderbilt, so he missed Tennessee, Arkansas, and Ole Miss.
All right. So the one thing I just want to make sure I was right on that too, because I was watching that one intently. But look, I think they just sometimes, and this I don't know if this is a discredit to Mark Pope in any way, but it seems like his teams are really good at this, and this team isn't. But they don't seem like when they get down, and I mean it could be one possession, it could be one bad play, it could be down by 10, it could be any bad thing. They just seem like they can't move on mentally. And I think that's something that with Butler in the lineup, I think that changes a lot of it. And I'm surprised that Pope maybe isn't better at getting those guys rallying, moving on to the next play. And that's something that with Butler, that I think they've been better at.
Well,
so
Okay, I'm glad you threw the caveat of Lamont in, because Duke, they were down big, came back. Gonzaga down big, came back. They've done it. Florida, they were down, they came back, et cetera, with Lamont in the game. Without
Correct.
him, they've lost, yes. And I think with Lamont, they win that game against Arkansas because he's able to cut off DJ's water. Clearly changes the trajectory of this team, a natural point guard, defensively and all that. And they're shooting DeRosa 41% in the league, in the best league in America, 41% from the 3-point line, and not taking near as many as kind of maybe thought. So we'll see. 3-point line and defense are going to be the keys to that game. We'll keep an eye. I think Kentucky sweeps, at least that's what I hope. Let's go to Tuesday night as well. In the Big Ten, number 7, Purdue, who's been on a heater, at number 24, Michigan, coming off of a big-time win at Indiana where they had a big lead, allowed Indiana to creep back in, and it was able to close the show late in the game. They win by 3 points. Anthony Leal hits a three-quarter court shot, too, to make it only a 3-point deficit. Killed the -3.5 Michigan.
I had -2.5, baby. I had
nice.
Wow.
Nice.
That's why you bet early. That's why you bet early.
Hey, a lot of bettors got screwed on that last night.
And Dusty, did you see the video of Dusty seeing it too? They were walking to the line. He has like hands in his pockets, and he just goes. He just like shrugs. I was like, this is great.
That's what we called, ladies and gentlemen, a bad beat, because Leo should have not have shot that, and he makes it from 65 feet or whatever it was.
Ridiculous.
But Purdue coming into Michigan. If you remember, we talked about this game a couple of weeks ago when they played back on January 24th. Thought Michigan, I think me and Coach actually picked Michigan to go into Purdue and win. And Purdue just hammered them, 91-64. Michigan did not look good. The Boilers only have one loss since December 29th, and that was to Ohio State at home back on January 21st. They're 19-5, 11-2 in the league, and they are rolling. They have scored 91, 81, 90, and 90 in their last 4. Not only defensively, but that offense is rolling too. But they go on the road, Ann Arbor. We know how good Michigan is when they're playing at their best. Coach, can Dusty win 5 in a row and knock off Purdue to really keep pace in the Big Ten here?
I'm prone to pick Purdue here, but I'm not going to. I'm gonna, because of the result last time and how bad it was. I know Purdue's playing great right now, but I think Dusty, I think Michigan is going to get him at home. I like the Wolverines.
Yeah, this goes against 2 really big things for me. I always try to point these things out when we predict games, and they typically go well for me. I think someone can pull that data and find out if I'm wrong. But anytime you mention the big result, anytime a team beats somebody so bad, the next game is probably never like that, and it's really hard, like Coach kind of just alluded to. And then the other thing is that's picking against me here is that Michigan has the better front court. And I think that is something, if they get comfortable and they get going with Wolf, I think they can absolutely pick. Nothing against Trey Kaufman-Rim, but he's really their kind of main guy right now.
He's their only one. He's the only one.
He's a Big Ten Player of the Year candidate this year. Man.
I know, but it's one against 2 big, really good bigs. And I think Michigan has the front court advantage. They obviously have the home court advantage, but I gotta take Purdue because I think that duo of guards is they're just gonna eat Michigan up. And sorry, Dusty.
Yeah, I don't have a confident read in this game whatsoever.
Same here.
The first game, it was like I really liked Michigan. Then it's like, well, but Purdue's at home and it's just Mackey. So like, yeah, I'm just gonna take Mackey. And it turned out my analysis was entirely wrong. It's just Purdue was just better. I'm gonna take Michigan to punch back. I think they can kind of control the interior. I don't think Purdue's interior defense is very good. I mentioned Trey Kaufman-Ren. I'm very happy Trevor made the point of like it's 1 versus 2. It is. And Trey Kaufman-Ren, not a great rim protector because he's just not the biggest guy out there. Like he's 6'9", 6'8". Like it's kind of hard for that guy to be your main rim protector. I think Michigan will get inside. Yeah, I'll take Michigan and I'll take Dusty. Why not?
They're going to be able to scheme it up. They're going to be able to scheme this opportunity up really well, I think, against Purdue's defense.
Trevor said something just a minute ago that I think is really good, talking about normally when a team in the first matchup blows the other team out, it's never like that usually in the second matchup. We just talked about 30 minutes ago about Texas Tech, Arizona. Matchup 1 in Texas Tech and Lubbock. Texas Tech beat them by like 18 points, Arizona being, and then yesterday Arizona flips the script at home and gets them back. I see similar here in Michigan, Purdue. Purdue hammered Michigan a couple weeks ago in Mackey. Now they go on the road. I see a similar script. The one guy, I mean, Trey Donaldson, we talked with Dusty last Sunday about his development. He was really good against Indiana yesterday in the first half, especially. I need to see more out of Roddy Gale. You're talking about a dude who came from Ohio State who was phenomenal for the Buckeyes. 2 points, 8 points, 6 points, 9 points. He's not scored in double figures since the Purdue matchup where he only had 11. We've not seen the best Roddy Gale in about a month's time. It's time for him to break out of the shell. I like the matchup, and I will say this, Vlad Golden, you're not playing soccer. Enough with the flopping. Every game. I don't know if you guys saw the Indiana game yesterday. He set a good hard screen on Trey Galloway. Trey just tried to go through it, didn't do anything dirty, nothing. And Vlad Golden went down like he had been shot in the stomach. He does this every game where for a 7-foot dude flops around like he's been killed. You got to stop. It's embarrassing. But I got Michigan winning this game, getting some revenge from a couple weeks ago. Let's go.
Solo on that one. Is that 3-1 me?
Right. Let's go to the Big East. Red hot Creighton playing host to number 23, Connecticut DeRosa. It's hard to win in Omaha. Connecticut found out really hard last year when they were the number 1 or number 2 team in the country and went there and got absolutely torched. Creighton's surging right now. Connecticut needs a win, but that building and the way Creighton is playing right now, I don't see Connecticut getting a road victory. How do you see this?
Yeah, Creighton just generally matches up well with UConn for whatever reason. They've just kind of been like the Big East team. That's even like UConn's been spectacular these last years, and even then, Creighton's just kind of had their number. Jemiah Neal in the first game was spectacular. That was kind of the first game where he showed up and was like, okay, he's like a legitimate player for them. He was a really tough cover for whoever was guarding him. They just didn't have an answer. However, also in that first game, UConn was without McNeely. I think McNeely makes a big difference. I think everyone here is going to pick Creighton, so I'm just going to take UConn. I don't know. Again, this is another game I don't feel like I have a good read on whatsoever. But I think McNeely makes a huge difference. I think they'll find some answers to try to get Ryan Kalkbrenner out of the paint. One thing Georgetown did, at least, I haven't seen if any other Big East team has done this. I'm assuming they have. And I'm assuming this is something Dan Hurley will think about because their staff is as sharp comes. Georgetown screened Ryan Kalkbrenner. Like, they would have guys driving to the lane, and then they would just set a screen on Ryan Kalkbrenner so he couldn't block a shot or affect the play at the rim. I feel like UConn will find ways to drag him out of the paint just because they're smart enough. And then I think they'll find ways to get it going. I'll take UConn. Why not? Just split the season series. Both road teams winning.
Boy, tough one. You're right. I could flip a coin here on this one. I know Creighton's the hotter team, but I'm not going to go through. I'm taking UConn with you. So and we'll see what Trevor and Josh say.
Trevor's going to be nice because this is recorded and this is live for the public to view. I'm picking against UConn for reasons I'm not talking about today, and Michael knows what I'm talking about.
Oh, I do too.
The other thing I'm going to pick against here is Ryan Kalkbrenner. He was in KenPom MVP last time in 39 minutes. He was dealing with I think it was an ankle back then too. I think he was still harboring something, but he had 16 points. He had 7 rebounds. He had 3 assists. He had 2 blocks and a steal. And they keep limited foul troubles and turnovers there too. So I think barbecue chicken for Ryan Kalkbrenner. And I think that Creighton, the home environment, I think that works in my favor here. I don't think UConn has an answer for him. I don't think many teams in the country do. And I'm going to leave it at that. I think Creighton wins, and I think they win pretty comfortably.
It would not surprise me if Samson Johnson fouled out in like 7 minutes.
Yep.
That is well within the range of outcomes.
I'm serious. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
I'm going to double down with Trevor for pretty much everything he said. I think also in that building, Creighton is prone to get red hot from 3, especially at home. The only key that worries me is if Ashworth does not have his A game. If he's turning the ball over, Connecticut gets out in transition, then it's a different game. But I'm trusting that he plays well, takes care of the ball. They run that 2-man game with him and Kalkbrenner, and Connecticut doesn't have anybody to guard Kalkbrenner. I'm going with Trevor, and I'm going Creighton. Last one I want to talk about. Also on Tuesday night, number 1 Auburn, coming off of their first conference loss, goes to Memorial Coliseum to play Vandy. I want to think about this before everybody jumps on and says Auburn's going to kill them. Vandy only has 1 loss at home in all year, and that was at the very beginning of conference play against Mississippi State, who was then ranked inside the top 15. They've beaten South Carolina, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Texas at home since then. They don't win on the road, but they really do a good job protecting home court. Weird environment. And Auburn, every year, especially when Bruce has really good teams, they go there and struggle. They don't normally blow out Vandy. Vandy's got a really solid team this year. I'll say it right now. I'm going upset. I'm going Vandy protecting home court, running that beautiful offense that they run with all the different variations and playing small, making Janai Brew, making Dylan Cardwell have to come out in the perimeter and guard some of these guys like a Devin McLaughlin, Tyler Nichols. They're going to have to chase his ass around on the perimeter with all the flare screening that they do. I've got Vandy on an upset here. I know I'll probably be the only one. Give me the Commodores at home over Auburn.
You just took my bank on it, so now I got to get a new one. I was going no teaser this week. You just screwed me up.
Sorry, Coach.
That's okay. I was going to go with you, Josh. I'm picking. Even though I won't use my bank on it. I'll take Vandy. You guys go ahead.
Josh said at the beginning of his breakdown, make sure you think about this, or he was some line similar to that. Make sure you hear me out at least. I heard you out. Vanderbilt's going to kill. Auburn's going to kill him. This is a 20-point game. This is not competitive.
You know what's crazy too is my bank on it was for them to beat Florida at Florida. And 86-75, hear me out for a second. Wasn't that bad. One interesting nugget is they're only projected to win one game the rest of the conference schedule.
I know. Yeah.
Which is crazy. And it's only a 2-point margin, according to KenPom, against Arkansas on March 4th at home. That's kind of insane. We know that they won't do that. We know that they'll probably find a way to beat Mississippi. They'll probably find a way to meet Missouri or whatever, right? Georgia at the end of the year. Yeah, I'm with Michael. I think this is Auburn just belt to behind. I think this is one where Vanderbilt, they've been on a great run here. I know that we're kind of thinking of them more fondly. I think I ranked them last week, even though they went 1-3 in their last 2-4 in their last 4, whatever it is. They lost to Oklahoma, lost to Florida, lost to Alabama since in the last 5. I think we're just riding so high on them because of some of the big wins being so big. Obviously, Tennessee, Kentucky, Texas in there. That I just think Auburn is in a class of their own, and I think that's part of the reason.
Fair enough. Let's move on to bank on it. I've already laid out the reason why I think this will happen, so I'll keep mine short and simple. Tuesday night, Michigan gets revenge on Purdue. Bank on it.
Took my other one. Okay.
Oh, God.
You guys got to start talking about it.
It's okay. So here's what I was going to give you because there's some even matchups, and it wouldn't be that big a deal if they did win. I'm going to say Kentucky, a double bank on it. Kentucky over Tennessee, Michigan over Purdue. They both have to hit for me to be right.
I like it.
All right. I've got 2 I'm looking at.
I don't know.
Come on, I've had 2 stolen and adjusted. You 2, let's go.
Okay. Yeah, I was between 2. I'm going to go with this one. I'm going to go with I'm picking a road team no matter what. So that's how it gets greasy. This team has not looked good lately, at all. But you know what? They're going to go to Missouri and win. Give me Oklahoma Wednesday. Goes to Missouri and wins. Bank on it. And the other one I was going to go with, I just want to cut a promo here for a second. You guys, you were talking about, Josh, how Kansas State's kind of found it a little bit. Kansas State's done this. They've done that. Coleman Hawkins looking good. They finally unleashed Doug McDaniel, right? They've really got him going. They're going to get smoked. Arizona's going to beat them 15.
Yeah.
But I'm going with Missouri. Oklahoma beat Missouri.
Octagon of Doom. We'll see. Trevor?
I'm going to go way off the board. I'm going to just reach it's going to be gross. You guys are going to hate this. Louisville almost lost to Miami yesterday. I know Peyton, I'll just pop the comment up real quick. Peyton commented Cards at 210 last night, right? The Cards did not look good, and that could have just been Louisville playing a bad game, whatever. They ultimately won by 10. They played Miami, and Miami is playing Syracuse at home, and Kim Pop thinks they're going to lose by 1. I think Miami gets their second ACC win out of the last 2 of 3. And, yeah, I think Miami beats Syracuse. I think the Syracuse lows right now are way low. And so I'll just go with nothing crazy, but I'll just go with Miami wins. It's supposed to be close, and Syracuse is playing very poorly right now.
We'll see if Syracuse has a vacancy open. The way they're playing, it can't keep going like this. We'll see. Shout outs, and we'll round this thing out. Coach, I'll let you go first on the shout out so I don't steal one of your shout outs.
Let's start with shout out to Hubie Brown.
Yep.
Yes.
91 years old, doing his final NBA game as we speak. The Sixers and Bucks. I have already watched a couple of the tributes. And when we're done here, I'm going to go watch more of them and probably the rest of this game. The guys of basketball, guru,
icon,
good word. Anyway, shout out to Hubie. My college basketball shout outs. Ryan Curry of Army, 30 points.
Yeah.
30 points in a double OT win, 10 of 13 from the floor, 4 of 6 from 3.
That game was 99-99 at one point.
Yes.
There was a meme going around about like how much money we spend on the defense of the United States, and Army wasn't part. Army's basketball defense wasn't part of that budget. It was really funny.
My next one is shout out to Yale, 7-0 in the Ivy League.
Yes.
And my third one is a personal one. A shout out to Ryan Argawal of Stanford, who had the game-winning drive and bucket against NC State last night. I recruited him to Rice as hard as any kid I've ever recruited. He broke my heart when he picked Stanford, but obviously it's Stanford. So a shout out to Ryan on it. Just a hell of a play and win and shot.
And you just broke Trevor's heart mentioning that he hit the game winner against his Wolfpack of NC State. So
I know that. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, but not
trying to forget that game we happened. Okay.
I mean, I can't. What the hell you want me to do? Is against NC State?
I know, you're right. All right. Hey, that's fine. Final four to missing the tournament altogether. Anyway, or missing the AC tournament altogether. Anyway, I'm gonna.
Who wants to go next so we can round this thing out?
Last. I've got something at the end that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I was going to shout out John Poulikitis, who had 35 for Yale. So coach beat me there, or 32, I believe. For Robert Morris, Alvaro Folgares, I believe is how you pronounce that. 35 points on a road win at Northern Kentucky, who just came off beating Cleveland State, who had one of the longest winning streaks in the country. That's how you win a game. Like one player goes off. It wouldn't be a Michael DeRosa thing on an Everything College Basketball podcast with a Utah State mention. Ian Martinez had 30 points. Utah State is still awesome. They're still my favorite team to watch. I don't care. They're amazing. Yeah. And then last, I got two more actually. Wesley Yates for USC. He was really under-recruited in the portal because he was coming off an injury last season. He missed all of last season for Washington.
Texas kid.
And then the Washington season kind of was weird. He missed all last season. It's like he was in the portal for a really, really long time, and USC just needed a body. So they're just like, yeah, we'll bring this kid on to be the end of the bench. He's been their best player in conference play. Shout out to him, 30 points. He's stud, excellent guard, and is looking like the guy you kind of thought he was in high school. I believe he was top 50 recruit, if I remember
correctly. Big time recruit.
Yeah. So shout out to him. And then this game literally just happened. Eric Dixon put together one of the best second halves of any guy I've seen all season. 22 points. He was getting and ones. I think he at one point had 15 straight points for Villanova. Just kind of willed him to a win. And when there was a loose ball at one point, it was tipping around. Eric Dixon finds it, throws this perfect outlet pass to Tyler Perkins for a bucket. He led Villanova. I mean, he willed Villanova to that win. That is a special, special talent. Shout out to him.
All right. I'll make mine quick so Trevor can get his when we get out of here. UC San Diego beats UC Irvine at the top of the Big West yesterday to move them to 20-4 overall, 10-2 in the league. They are now tied with UC Irvine. That is a big result out in the Big West, a one-bid league. Looks like it's going to come down between those two again, matching up in their conference tournament. That is a massive win to get to 20 wins for UC San Diego, so shout out. Jace Richardson, I already talked about, 29 points. Blew up in the second half, killed Oregon right in front of his pops, in front of Mateen Cleaves, in front of Mo Pete. Huge performance by the freshman, 29. And then you talk about Louisville. I thought you were going to say something. Take it. They don't have a starting point guard right now because Chucky Hepburn was out for the game against Miami. Terrence Edwards, who's a wing, had a slide over and play point guard primarily. 27 points, 5 rebounds, 10 assists, and a 10-point victory over Miami. If that's your kind of backup point guard spot, his scoring ass at 6'7", you're in a decent spot the way he can go. He flirted with a triple-double, gentlemen. 27, 5, and 10. That's pretty damn good for not being a traditional point guard. So those are my shout outs.
I tried to find the Hubie. I'll send it to Coach if I can find it. There's a stat that I found last year about Hubie and his impact and how many decades he's been in the sport. Where how many guys, there was something about how many Hall of Famers or something that he's been around. I'll find it and send it to you. My 3 shout outs. High Point Asheville last night was an incredible game. Didn't get to catch much of it. But that league, Big South, it's going to be incredible finish there. Most neutral of neutral sites are playing it in friggin' Johnson City, Tennessee, outside of the league's footprint. High Point won 104-100. It was just an absolute masterclass from both those teams. Shout out to Ted Valentine, Teddy V, TV Teddy. I met that man for the first time last week, and I forgot to mention it on the last shout outs. Nicest human being in college basketball. I absolutely spent 15 minutes talking to me. Didn't have to do that. Nicest guy in the world. Love TV Teddy, obviously watching him as a kid. Calling all these games. Lastly, this one is kind of it's good. It's a good and bad. You guys know where I'm going with this, but the Campbell Fighting Camels keep winning. I don't know what they're at this point. It's reaching levels of unbelievable. So I'm going to give you a couple of stats. They're 157th in Haslam metrics. So shout out to our guy Eric for that. They're 29th since January 18th in Bartorvik in the country. 29th best Bartorvik team in the country. 168th overall. They're 165th in KenPom. They were 306th preseason. So they've doubled their KenPom spot since the preseason. They've won 6 in a row. They have a chance on national TV at 8 o'clock on Monday on CBS Sports Network to do it against A&T, who's won 4 games total this year. They have a chance to go for 7 in a row. They don't play another top team in the league until almost the end of February when they play Towson. So they could potentially be on a 10-game win streak when Towson comes to Buies Creek at the end of February. And then obviously Jason Sinani. I tweeted about it. It blew up. It's not something I wanted to happen. But just shout out to Jason, his family, and everything that just surrounds that situation. Really quick for those that don't know what happened. Thank goodness for Flow Sports at this point. But unfortunate injury. Kevin Ware, Joe Theismann level bad, and he immediately is already talking about coming. I mean, this is like this kid. He's the toughest kid I've ever been around, toughest kid I've ever covered. And just hearing some of the stories around that and around him, CBS gave him a shout out on the broadcast last night. So just I hope that his family, is doing well and they find peace and everything. But it's just an incredibly terrible injury. Their second best player, their preseason player of the year, everything that could have happened. And it just, I'm just glad he is able to use his leg right now. And that's incredible.
Yeah. Well, we hope the best for Jason. Terrible injury. But we hope you guys enjoy your Super Bowl Sunday, whether you're rooting for the Chiefs, rooting for the Eagles for betting purposes, or you're like me and wish both of them could lose. We hope you enjoy it and do whatever you do on traditional Super Bowl Sundays. We hope you guys enjoy the rest of your evening until Thursday, where we're going to have a lot to talk about for episode 217. We will catch you guys down the road. Peace.